Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Patrons video today that I'm making for Ghost as part of their custom monthly music review. And if we switch over to here, we have ourselves a YouTube video on the screen. This is by G.O.D Groove Over Dose and it's titled Dear Mother to My Mother. There are English subs here as well, which I'm excited for, so we're going to listen through this track from start to finish and we're going to hear what we think. Let's go. What do we got? What do we got from this song? It's so beautiful. It's so wonderful. I never heard this band of before, but I adore it. Those synth pads. And the reverb on that snare is dope, man. It's divine.
어려서부터 우리 집은 가난했었고 난들단 외식 몇 번 한 적이 없었고 일터에 나가신 어머니 집에 없으면 언제나 혼자서 끓여 먹었던 라면 그러다 라면이 너무 지겨웠어 맛있는 것 좀 먹자고 대들었었어 그러자 어머님이 마지못해 꺼내신 숨겨두신 비상금으로 시켜주신
I mean, like, the song is straight to the point, and this is why I'm appreciative for the subs, because I just wouldn't understand the severity of the story. I've heard a few songs like this lately, where they talk about how the child is ungrateful for the food and then realizes later on just how much their mother in particular had to work to be able to get them that lifestyle at all. I mean, I suppose the song's about showing gratitude, but yeah, great flow to the vocals, easy to understand what's going on, it's great.
하지만 어머님은 왠지 드시질 않았어 어머님은 짜장면이 싫다고 하셨어 어머님은 짜장면이 싫다고 하셨어 야야야 그렇게 살아가고 그렇게 후회하고 눈물도 흘리고 야야야 그렇게 살아가고 너무나 아프고 하지만 다시 웃고.
The rapped verses, the sung hooks, great contrast between them, fantastic vocal technique all around. When did this song come out? Because I'd say this would have been a while ago. Be interesting to see how this group compares, like how people feel about this group in comparison to a lot of the more sort of modern K-pop bands, for example, and such. But I do enjoy the vocal melodies. They have their angelic, the hidden chest voices managed well, great harmonies, and it's just really easy to follow sort of accompaniment that kind of backs it up and has a sort of like a wholesome feel to it.
도시락 까먹을 때 다같이 함께 모여 도시락 뚜껑을 열었는데 부잣집 아들 녀석이 나게 화를 냈어 반찬이 그게 뭐냐며 나에게 뭐라고 했어 창피했어 그만 눈물이 났어 그러자 그 녀석은 내가 온다며 놀려댔어 참을 수 없어서 얼굴로 날아간 내 주먹에 일터에 계시던 어머님은 또 다시 학교에 불려오셨어 아니 또 끌려오셨어 다시는 이런 일이 없을 거라며 비셨어 그 녀석 어머니께 고개를 숙여 비셨어 우리 어머니가 비셨어
I mean, that's rough when you have to like basically kowtow to people because you just are so frightened that you're going to lose what you had and you worked so hard for. I can imagine being a parent would be incredibly frustrating. I like the brutal honesty of this. I think it's very endearing. The softness, the sweetness of the vocals here make a lot of sense for the delivery in the story.
아버님 없이 마침내 우리는 해냈어 마침내 조그만 식당을 하나 갖게 됐어 그리 크진 않았지만 행복했어 주름진 어머니 눈가에 눈물이 고였어 어머니와 내 이름의 앞글자를 따서 식당 이름을 짓고 고상을 지내고 밤이 깊어가도 아무도 떠날 줄 모르고 사람들의 축하는 계속되었고 자정이 다 돼서야 돌아갔어 피곤하셨는지 어머님은 어느새 깊이 잠이 들어버리시고는 깨지 않으셨어 다시
Oh. Is that real? I just think I need a moment to process, like, what just happened?
한 번도 말을 못했지만
It's one of the saddest songs I think I've heard in quite a while.
내가 없는 세상에서 영원토록 그렇게 살아가고
Great passion to this performance here vocally. Matches the intensity of the conclusion of this track. I mean, like, that completely took me by surprise. I thought she was going to make it through and now just going to live happy ever after. Oh, Ghost, what have you done? What have you done, Ghost? That hit me like a train. Because this is the conclusion of my review of this track from G.O.D, titled Dear Mother to My Mother. What is this track about? This track is very clearly about someone who is looking back on how they grew up. They're looking back and going, okay, the time that I was around the place, I had my mother take care of me, and we struggled, but she never let me know how we were struggling. You know, I wasn't always grateful for it. And then the second verse was being in school and him getting bullied by people by the rich kids, and then him fighting back, but the parents, the mother, basically having to sort of like submit to beg the person to not cause further trouble for her child, because, you know, when you've got money, you can make things difficult for people who don't. And the final verse is when they finally got out of that situation, where they finally found a modicum of success, and then the mother passed away, and it's like, you just can't catch a break, man. I mean, that's life, right? It is life. Life isn't fair. But that's one of the most sad endings to a track I've ever heard in my entire life. And I think that it was handled so eloquently by the vocalists, the different rappers involved, that there was more than one, the different singers harmonizing with each other or having their own sort of individual bits in like the last interlude section or over the hooks. They each had a part to play here, and they spoke their truth incredibly well. It seems like something they can all sort of relate to in one way or another. I'm sure if they all literally experienced the same thing with their mothers, I hope that they all didn't, because that would be terrible, but it seems like at least one of them had that kind of tragedy occur, and it's very bittersweet. They found success, but the woman, the mom, she just put so much effort into it, she just never came back. She finally got to the end of her journey, trying to get her kid to a point of success, and it's brutal, man. She finally got to rest, but it was only at the end. But you know, fantastic vocals, great hidden chest voice there, interesting, compelling melodies there, sung over the hook lines there. The rhythms of the phrasing with the rapping were great in the verse parts. We repeated some dubba da da dubba da dun, da dubba da da dubba da dun, and dubba dun. We had little variations there just to keep things percussive. The syllables came through clearly, and they did in the clean parts as well. I would say with the clean vocals, because I know I'm going backwards and forwards between the rapped and the clean parts, while I appreciate the rapped bits, I got more of a feel, quote unquote, from the chorus, especially the interlude part, the near outro part, where we had the I love you part. You know, we were kind of mourning the loss of that person after we finally got to the end, and they're just coming to terms with what occurred in their life and looking back on it. It's a letter to their mother, and it was so sweet. And like the really, how do I describe it? There were like an extra layer of vocals in the last chorus where they just go full on kind of like legato mode, where like they have all these kind of crazy sort of vocal lines and trails and stuff. And it was wonderful over the top of the main hook line, a fantastic development there, and a final swan song for the end of the piece. All in all, I think the vocals sound like they match the story well. They sound like they're grieving but grateful, and they can understand the difficulties and complexities of the past. But you know, in addition to that, the track is 4 minutes 15 and makes fantastic use of that time. There was no filler in here. We had an instrumental intro with like the verse coming in with the rapping, and then the hook lines as well. And then we had the 2 verses, and then we had the third one as well, the third verse, where it came into that interlude part we basically told the listener at the end of it, and you had things just stop and just let the clean vocals over the top with the I love you, I miss you, etc. part to the final sort of refrain there where we say goodbye. It's great structure there. We didn't need any alternative lead elements there. I mean, we had drums, bass, synth pads, etc. Maybe some other synth leads, etc. There might have been some other instruments, like if I go back a little bit, you know. No, there might have been an organ like keys in there or something like that, but I don't think we necessarily had more of that. It might have even been like a choir synth pad or something like that. They had a lot of those in like the 80s and 90s, and they do use them nowadays, but outside of that, you know, really minimal accompaniment. The focal point was the vocals in this, but they nailed that well. I'm really happy with it. It's a great first impression to G.O.D, as I haven't heard them before, but they're a great act, and I think they deserve their success, especially if they write authentic stuff like this. The theme itself, with the majority of being simple sort of triads there outside of the complexities and the arrangement and the overall coloration that came from the really kind of wonderful vocal lines and other sort of like crazy scale stuff, and especially in the outer half. It was very simple, and it was like almost sort of a spiritual experience listening to it with the glow and the glimmer of it. There was sadness in there, but it was almost like it looped into itself, as in this is life and life continues to repeat itself. It's just one journey, and then you take over, and then your children might be that to your children, etc. Sure, you want better, but you never know what life's going to hand you, and it's just about taking, you know, life is, you've got to make the most of what time you're given, and that's what the theme sort of said to me, the chords and backing and everything else like that. And it was very matter of fact, and it was very warm at the same time. The studio, so I think everything was well connected. The studio recording, mixing, and master was splendid. Really, you know, I think this might have been uploaded a few times to YouTube, so I or maybe like re-uploaded at least. So I'm not sure I had the true original audio quality there, which is fine, by the way. I don't mind it. I can hear it. There's a little bit of like, you know, like when you export a file into a different one, and it can affect the way it sounds, create a little bit of digital fragmentation or something like that, a little bit of audio compression there you don't necessarily want. That's kind of what's going on here, but it's very minimal. The vocals are nice and present in the mix, whether they're the rapping or the clean parts. The bass line in the bottom is nice and well balanced there, alongside the drums being nicely sidechained and says they have presence too without being overwhelming. The synth pads, the keys, etc., they're nice in the mid to high range and balance it out. It's very pretty sounding throughout. And all in all, you know, there is a sense of dynamic range to it. Things aren't loud, same loudness all the time, which I appreciate. It wouldn't have been tonally appropriate here. The leveling of the instruments in general was great, so no weird kind of like overall, you know, there wasn't anything poking out of the mix at you. It was meant to be smooth, with nice uses of reverbs and stuff like that, and a little bit of kind of like a mistiness to some of the instruments that worked well with the story there, the kind of remembrance and the memory itself. It was nice to wind the stereo field there as well, which was good. You know, you were surrounded by the music, and it was nice and loud without pumping. And I mean, effectively, this is my review of this track by G.O.D, titled Dear Mother or To My Mother. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please do go show some love via their various social medias, and I'm sure this is on all digital streaming platforms. And stay cool and stay safe. Please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they either help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world, and I'll catch you in the next SC Patrons video. Spiderhands out.